Donald Trump wants to do what conservatives have always wanted to do, particularly starting in the 1990s with the contract with America, Newt Gingrich, Joe Scarborough, all of these new representatives came in, many others. And they've always wanted to get rid of PBS and NPR. Now, I'm of two minds here. First off, I don't watch PBS. I'm not a child. I don't watch Sesame Street. I don't watch Nova. Is that still a thing? I don't watch any of that stuff. But when I did watch it, I always noticed something fascinating. That they would show some sort of documentary or Are You Being Served in 80s, whatever, 90s. But they always were sponsored at the end, say it with me, the Chubb Group, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation. And it would list all of these, the Bill and the Emma, the John and Stephanie Myers. I mean, people you don't even fucking know. Their foundation after foundation, all these tax dodges is what they all really are. But they would all support PBS. They were producers of the programs. These are $1 billion, some of these, and they're tax-free. They were worth hundreds of millions, their endowments have hundreds of millions of dollars and sometimes billions. And I thought, that's odd that we're paying, and this was going on in the 90s. This was going on in the 80s. So there was always something sponsored in addition to the money that it would get from Washington. I'm talking PBS. The problem with PBS is it's profitable. Sesame Street is a profitable entity. The different cartoons that are on there for children who sell products at stores and, the whole thing, they're profitable, right? And so you kind of don't understand what, as you get older and you're not reliant on public television, and today, especially in 2025, video on demand, streaming services, et cetera, PBS still plays a role with children, and particularly my generation, Gen X. We have an emotional attachment to Muppets. We just do. They were, and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I have a relative, my sister, who would literally die for the right to for PBS to exist. She's a teacher. She's fantastic, but she has an emotional connection to Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, Sesame Street, the Electric Company, and all the things that we grew up watching after school. And, anyway, so I'm always curious about why we were subsidizing the PBS. I love the message of Sesame Street. I love the messages of inclusion. I love that they showed people doing different jobs. I love that Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood is one of the greatest shows ever created for children, particularly. He was slow and methodical, and he captured, not me, I was bored as shit by Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, but I saw but as I got older, I appreciated what he was doing. But I always assumed that PBS eventually would just be a private company or something, or a network by itself, and whatever. And I don't really know the good that PBS is doing, where it was a necessity in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. I don't know that it is now. Again, I could be wrong about this. And again, I don't like Donald Trump. And if you asked me, I would just keep funding. They always want to defund the arts. That's the first thing conservatives want to do, because conservatives don't like people being liberalized. They don't like you educating yourself. They don't like inclusionary stuff. You're seeing it with all of them. They're taking the tax-free status away from Harvard, and other universities are threatening to if they keep their DEI policies. That's just insane and archaic and antiquated and silly. So if it were left up to me, I wouldn't touch PBS. But I can understand, they want to get rid of it for another reason than I do. And we'll go into NPR as well here in a second. But as far as PBS is concerned, and Children's Television Network, and all of the things that they've become commoditized, because it's capitalism, and they make money. You can go into any toy store and see if there's a toy store that's left that exists anymore, or online, and you can get a plush doll or a magnet or a sticker or something from Sesame Street. It's a very profitable franchise, but it's not the only one. Obviously, there are ones that aren't as profitable, and they help children, and they're, whatever, with inclusion and diversity and a real sense of community and teaching people to accept everybody's differences. They have disabled people on. They have, I personally, like I said, I would not defund it. In fact, I would have increased funding, and I would have gotten rid of all the private corporate money and just had it be a sort of leftist, run organization, and I would have endowed it for billions of dollars, and I would budget it, whatever. But I can see why as from a leftist perspective, they're not doing it for the reasons that I'm doing it. They're not doing it because PBS could probably be profitable on its own. They're doing it because they hate diversity. They hate little kids learning that everybody's okay. These are Christo-fascists. These are, this is the Heritage Foundation. This is Project 2025. And conservatives have always wanted to get rid of the Endowment for the Arts, PBS, NPR. NPR, however, I don't have any love for. I'm a Marxist-Leninist style communist. I am for the proletariat. I am for the working classes. I am not comfortable, or I do not care for empire, whether it's liberal empire or conservative empire. I don't like either one. I don't like empire. And that's what NPR really promotes. MAGA doesn't get this. The right wing doesn't get what NPR is. NPR is a propaganda machine for liberal empire. Now let me explain. I used to listen to NPR. I live in Portland, Oregon, and NPR is a pretty big deal here. And do you know what the name of their studio is? The Gert Boyle Studio. Now, Gert Boyle, of course, was the chairwoman of Columbia Athletic Wear, which is basically, it's a big deal in Oregon. Columbia is, never mind, they make all their shit someplace out of the country. But anyway, so it's a big deal here. And Gert Boyle gave a bunch of money before she died to her foundation, gave a bunch of money to get that studio named after this capitalist piece of shit who didn't make anything in the country but sold her shit. Columbia does make some stuff in the country, but the majority isn't. And then they would charge the working classes. They would take the money. They weren't hiring the working classes in this country. They were doing it in other countries. And so she was a piece of shit capitalist, and they named the studio after her because she gave them money. That's NPR. NPR is airing advertising now. This has been brought to you by HelloFresh. HelloFresh, a food service, a food delivery service. And that's not the only one. Not only that, but every NPR story, I used to listen to it at 5 o'clock in the morning on my way to work. Every NPR, I noticed this, living in Oregon, everyone, the same story. It was about some either woman of color or a transgendered youth, mostly transitioning from male to female, and they lived in an oppressive regime that America did not like, and that America was probably pretty much not allies with. And they would tell the story about how oppressive their parents bailed on them, and they were homeless, and then they were homeless, and all of the indignities and all the things. And then they finally got some help from something, a friend, an agency. They just on their own, whatever, and they ended up leaving that oppressive country and going to one of a Western country. You see where I'm going with this? They were propagandizing against Muslims, Muslim-run nations, which fundamentalism is fundamentalism. And it was an Asian country, or it was a country, like I said, that was not an ally of the United States, generally speaking. And they would spin it as if it was this wonderful thing that they escaped the clutches of this horrible regime and got to Australia or Canada or America or somewhere in Europe, right? Western power. This is also the network that everybody on all their disc jockeys, all their hosts, these people make a lot of money and all have been educated in elite institutions. Not always just the Ivy Leagues, but other high institutions. The University of Oregon isn't considered Ivy League, but it's a really fucking good university. Same thing with USC, UCLA, same thing. I mean, we can just go on and on and on. Washington State, Oregon State, these are really good schools. And so they come in and they're all very, very liberal empire based. Their news stories are not about how bad America is, or their stories are how great America is from a centrist liberal position. This is used as propaganda. This is just like USAID. USAID did a lot of good things. They would help feed people in refugee camps and things of that nature, but they also used propaganda as part of their campaign. They would also go into countries and purposely, countries that perhaps weren't as open about transgenderism or homosexuality, and they would fund these transgendered and homosexuality kind of these, whatever. And they would purposely do this to foment problems in the country. Now, that wasn't the only reason they did it, but it was American propaganda. And Trump didn't see that. He didn't understand, because if Trump and the Project 2025 goons or anything, they're super duper duper in love with America. They love patriot. They're huge patriots. They're the worst people on the planet, but they are huge patriots. And they have no desire to have American power go anywhere. They're not reducing the military budget. They're not doing it, closing bases. They're not doing any of that shit. They love empire, and they love all of the bullshit nonsense that America is, right? And that's what USAID and that's what NPR does. I've said this in many videos. I want the empire taken down. They don't, but they're going to end up being part of being either the beginning of it, or they're going. I don't know where we are in the timeline, but MAGA will bring down the empire and not even mean to. Because what they're going to do is just become and they already are, so rapacious, so greedy, that they will only look out for themselves, and they will get rid of everything else, cut taxes, leave the military, huge budget, underfund schools, go after anybody who has a student loan aggressively, and really attack the left part of the country. And that's what this is. It's an attack on the quote-unquote left, more center left, and diversity and wokeness and things like that conservatives have convinced everybody is the greatest threat to them. Not economics, not a billionaire who's cutting taxes and firing people, but your biggest threat is a transgendered woman. So, right. So MAGA is applauding this. Conservatives have always wanted NPR and PBS gone. I want them gone for totally different fucking reasons. I want them gone, not so much PBS, but NPR is propaganda. And it dresses itself up as pseudo-intellectual claptrap. That's what it is. It is. It is pseudo-intellectual nonsense. They always back empire. Always. They promote the empire inside of the country. They're a propaganda arm of the United States experience. And Donald Trump, because he doesn't listen or read or do any research, doesn't understand this. Those people on NPR are closer to Donald Trump, the way they feel about the country, their patriotism is closer to Donald Trump than anybody on the real left that hates empire, hates this country, hates what it does to the working class and poor. And so they, like I said, they're going to take it down, and they're not even going to know they did it. They're going to let a bunch of, I watch Trump rallies. I see people, I see black people and Mexican people voting for Donald Trump. I see people applauding deportations of human beings who are here to get a better life. I am seeing them tell you that America's a business and it needs to be run like a business. And that of course fuels part of the let's cut taxes. Let's put business first. Fuck everything else. I need to get mine. That's capitalist realism, as Mark Fisher called it. Fuck everybody else. I need to get mine. It's hip hop music, right? The most capitalist realist thing is hip hop music. They're only about money and status. They're not about anything else. Generally speaking, there's some great hip hop, but most of it is simply about accumulation of wealth, bling, that kind of shit. So let's get rid of, I'm good with getting rid of NPR. I have no problem. PBS, not as sure. Don't know. Have to. I think little kids need that after school. Some kids, I don't know. But again, they're going to get what they want, and they're going to destroy the country and all the things that kind of make the country great or good even or livable. Thank you for listening.